Dirty water exploded into the air like a miniature blast. In an instant, Naomi Sinclair's uniform dress, breakfast bag, and freshly done makeup were all splattered in murky gray-brown sludge. A glossy white SUV sped past without slowing. The passenger window slid halfway down, revealing a heavily made-up face with blood-red lips curled into a mocking smirk. Standing in the middle of the road on a workday? Just 'cause you're broke doesn't mean you're invisible. The car vanished into a trail of exhaust. Naomi stood still, rain clinging to her lashes. She didn't wipe it off, didn't curse. She simply tightened the strap of her soaked canvas bag and kept walking. Comment 1 if this opening hit you hard and made you wonder, who really needs to take a hard look in the mirror? The city hadn't quite woken up. The sky was ash gray. Rain from the night before still puddled on the pavement, as if refusing to leave. 6:14 a.m. Naomi walked along Marston Avenue, the soles of her worn office shoes soaked through. In one hand, she clutched a fabric tote. In the other, a lunchbox holding boiled eggs and a cold sandwich. Each step echoed her growing worries. Would there be enough overtime hours today? Did her little sister Zora remember to wear a jacket to school? And would the stains on her uniform be enough to get her fired? She glanced at the mirrored glass of a nearby building. The reflection showed a mud-stained woman, but her eyes were still clear. From across the street, a man sitting in a black car watched her. He hadn't looked away since the SUV sped past. Naomi, 23rd. Deep brown skin, slender frame but straight-backed. Her cornrowed hair pulled into a neat bun at the nape. She wasn't glamorous, but she was the kind of woman who made people look twice, not because of beauty, but because of her quiet resolve. After losing her mother to a stroke during a late-night janitorial shift, Naomi had dropped out of hotel management school to work full-time as a cleaner at the Valenhurst Grand, a 5-star hotel where the powerful walked past broom holders without seeing them. Every morning she rose before 5 a.m., packed breakfast for Zora, taped handwritten study reminders to her sister's lunchbox, then caught 3 buses to work. The woman who splashed mud on her. Harper Renly, heiress to Renly Global Real Estate and the face of the luxury fashion label HWR. She didn't recognize Naomi, or more accurately, she didn't care to. In the service wing of the hotel, Naomi entered through silence thick as cement. Mud still clung to the collar of her shirt. "Naomi," said Mr. Clark, the morning floor manager, frowning. "5 minutes late, and your uniform looks like you crawled out of a sewer." Naomi bowed her head. A car splashed. Don't need the story," he cut her off. "Clean the entire first-floor hallway before the tour group arrives. If I see a single shoe print—" She nodded. No protest, no defense. From a security camera across the street, a pair of eyes watched. Malik Freeman, the youngest CEO in the Coal Estates conglomerate, sat in the back of his car. Black suit, loosened tie, untouched coffee in hand. "Rewind, just before the mud hit her," Malik told the assistant beside him. As Naomi's face came into focus, something shifted in his eyes. "Find out who she is, her name, background, family." "You want to help her?" the assistant asked. "Not help," Malik murmured. "I want to know why the world still thinks it has the right to treat people like her as disposable." Naomi changed into an old uniform from last year. Too tight. Buttons wouldn't close properly. She dabbed her face with a dry napkin in the locker room. Downstairs, the hallway filled with guests. Every time she bent down to scrub the floor, the dried mud rubbed her neck raw. Still, she said nothing. No one offered her water. No one offered help. A coworker passed by, saw the state she was in, then turned away like nothing happened. As Naomi leaned over, her hands trembling, she noticed a fresh, muddy footprint, not from a guest. It was a maintenance boot. Someone had walked straight across the spot she'd just cleaned. In a cramped corner behind the supply room, Naomi opened her lunchbox. The eggs were cold. The sandwich stuck to the plastic wrap. She ate in silence. Even her fingers trembled, but still she packed everything away, wiped down the seat, took a deep breath, and returned to work. On the top floor of the Valenhurst Grand, a glass-walled office overlooked the square below. Malik stood at the window, watching the crowd move like diluted ink in the rain. In his hand, a printed photo from the security footage. Naomi crouched, scrubbing the floor, head bowed low, her face stained with mud, but her eyes still wide open. "I've seen those eyes before," he murmured, "in my mother 30 years ago." He turned to his assistant. "Tomorrow, staff hallway, locker 47, put something warm in it. But don't let anyone know it's from me, because some things, if we don't stop and see them, the system will always treat them like flooring, not like people." Everything had just begun. The next morning, when Naomi opened locker 47, she froze. Inside was a neat brown paper bag. No label, no name. She looked around. The locker room was empty. Inside the bag, a brand new pair of gloves, black, lined with fleece, and a warm chicken sandwich wrapped in foil. Beneath it, a folded note. "To the woman who kept her dignity on the days the world forgot how to be kind." Naomi dropped onto the bench. Her eyes stung, not from mud this time, but from the unexpected kindness of someone she couldn't see. Comment 1, if you believe that sometimes the smallest acts are the ones that hold a person together for an entire day. The morning shift started like usual, but something felt different. Naomi no longer had to force her hands into the old frayed gloves. She slipped on the new pair, warm, a perfect fit. As she polished the glass panels in the lobby on the second floor, she moved with a calm even she didn't understand. Down a side hallway, coworkers walked by. Some glanced at her. A few gave small nods. No one asked questions, but something in the air had shifted. Only the elderly security guard stared for half a second, then looked back down at his unread newspaper. In the security room, one monitor showed Naomi at work, cleaning glass, arranging flowers, folding towels. Someone was watching, someone she didn't know, but who saw her clearly. Malik Freeman, 32, CEO of Cole Estates, rarely in the spotlight, never walks red carpets, refuses interviews. The media called him the shadow billionaire, born in South Bend, a low-income housing zone in the city's far south. Raised by a janitor, never met his father, he came up on scholarships, night shifts, and grit. When he saw Naomi get splashed with mud and keep walking, something inside him stirred. Not pity, recognition, a quiet mirror of the woman who once scrubbed his world clean. "She doesn't need saving," Malik told his assistant, "but the world needs to see women like her more clearly." Change never escapes the notice of those who cling to hierarchy. Janelle Brooks, a 6-year veteran in housekeeping, noticed Naomi's new gloves and her hot sandwich. "Well, well," Janelle whispered to 2 others. "Looks like little Miss Broke got herself a secret admirer. Must be real good at kissing up." Naomi didn't hear the words, but she felt the eyes, the glances, the half-laughs, the sudden silences when she walked into a room. Kindness had warmed her morning, but it also made her stand out in ways she never asked for. She used to wish someone would notice, but not like this. Not in a way that made others sneer at a gift she didn't even request. That afternoon, while Naomi ate lunch in the back courtyard, Malik walked past, hoodie up, beanie low, sunglasses hiding his gaze. He pretended to scroll his phone, but his eyes never left her. Naomi was carefully halving the rest of her sandwich. She placed one piece into a plastic box, saving it for Zora. No lipstick, no glam, no audience, but the care in her hands. She packed that food like it was a meal fit for a princess. Malik pressed his lips together. He didn't know her, but somehow he did. His mother used to do that. Eat half and save the best for her son. Later that day, while Naomi was cleaning the area near the VIP elevators, a voice called out behind her. "Ms. Davis." She turned. It was the head of HR. "You're being reassigned to the VIP maintenance team, starting tomorrow. Morning shift, with a 12% pay increase." Naomi blinked. She wasn't sure if she should be happy or anxious. In this place, unexpected good news often came with invisible strings. I I didn't apply for a transfer. No need. This was an executive decision. Just be ready. Naomi nodded, bowing slightly, but inside a dozen questions swirled. Who was paying attention to someone as invisible as her? That evening, as she changed out of her uniform, Naomi found a small note tucked inside her employee handbook. The top floor isn't just for those who wear polished shoes. It's for those who can walk with their head down and still never lose their way. She looked around. No one nearby. But this time the feeling was stronger than ever. Someone was watching, not to monitor, but to quietly lift. At the highest office of the tower across from Valenhurst, Malik closed a folder. The cover. A photo of Naomi arranging flowers. The next page. Her HR file. 23 years old. Difficult circumstances. No legal guardian. High academic performance. Education interrupted. He leaned back in his chair, eyes cool but steady. Starting next week, I want to personally assess the VIP floor's service quality, he said into the phone. You mean you in person? Not as CEO, he replied. As a guest, one who expects to be served. He let a faint smile rise. And she'll be the one assigned to my room. If anyone dared believe Naomi wasn't worth seeing, then he would sit in the one place where they couldn't avoid the reflection of their own blindness. Naomi entered VIP Lounge 603. The note on the door read, odor removal and sofa cleaning requested. But the room was pristine. She checked every corner. No stains, no smell. She was about to leave when a deep male voice spoke from near the window. You don't need to clean anything. I only asked you here to say thank you. Naomi turned. A black man, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sunglasses hanging from his top button, sat casually like he owned the place. You're the guest staying in this room? You could say that. Comment 1 if you feel this man is clearly not what he seems, and you're wondering, what exactly is he hiding? The 6th floor VIP lounge of Valenhurst Grand was reserved for investors, strategic partners, and those who didn't need introductions. Naomi had never stepped foot in this part of the building. From the Persian wool rugs to the French-chilled mineral water, everything smelled like silent power. She stood by the door, slightly hunched out of habit. Malik remained seated, eyes steady on her, this time not through a screen but face to face. How long have you worked here? Malik asked, voice deep but soft. Almost 2 years, Naomi replied, cautiously. I'm just on the cleaning staff. Nothing special. Is that so? Because I've noticed the floors are always cleaner in your zones. Naomi's brow twitched. She let out a soft chuckle. People don't usually remember who's holding the mop. Malik tilted his head. But I remember, and I think a few more people ought to. He didn't say more, just stood and handed her a glass of water. Here, it's not easy working quietly among people who only value noise. As Naomi left the room, 2 receptionists sitting in the hallway exchanged glances. One of them whispered, she was in there for almost 20 minutes. Must have been cleaning more than just the furniture. Gossip spread faster than the scent of disinfectant. And Janelle Brooks, once the self-proclaimed queen of the hallways, was growing more bitter by the day. That girl isn't just climbing floors, Janelle said at lunch, her tone sharp as vinegar. She's climbing people. The comment earned a few snickers, but Naomi didn't laugh. She heard it, she felt it, and she began to realize even kindness comes at a cost. The next day, Naomi was assigned to prepare the rooftop mini-conference room, reserved for a private meeting. She checked the air conditioner, arranged the table linens, polished the glassware, every movement precise, as if she owned the space, not served it. From a corner security feed, Malik watched. She didn't know, but every breath, every bend, every pause was being memorized. She wasn't just doing her job, she was leaving a mark, even if everyone around her wanted to erase it. That afternoon, as Naomi wiped down the main lobby, a scream echoed from the guest seating area. A guest slipped. Who cleaned this floor? The manager immediately pointed in her direction. You were responsible for this area, weren't you? Naomi froze. I used the standard solution. Right proportions. She glanced at the supply cabinet. The label on the cleaner was correct, but the cap wasn't the one she'd used. Something felt off, like someone had swapped it intentionally. But no one was listening. A guest sat holding an ice pack to their hip. The floor was slick enough to see a reflection. All eyes fell on her, and for the first time in days, Naomi felt small again. That night, Naomi was summoned to the department head's office to discuss the incident. She nearly broke down. Then the door opened. Malik entered, no disguise, no sunglasses. Behind him, the head of security. I want to see footage from the last 30 minutes in the lobby, Malik said calmly but firmly. Silence dropped over the room. The footage played. It showed Janelle entering the supply room before Naomi, opening the chemical cabinet and switching the floor cleaner label. The manager's voice faltered. I had no idea. She doesn't need anyone to defend her, Malik said coldly, but I will not let injustice happen under my watch. Not again. Naomi was cleared. Janelle was suspended for 2 weeks. The manager issued a formal apology. But Naomi didn't celebrate. She didn't retaliate. She quietly put away her tools, rinsed out her bucket, and returned to the locker room. Inside her drawer, a folded note waited. Justice is not the loudest voice. It's the light that makes the shadow retreat on its own. Naomi pressed her lips together. She wasn't ready to trust the system. But the eyes that had seen her, back when she stood in the mud, were now planting something stronger than justice. Expectation. On a polished walnut vanity table, amid PR documents and designer bag receipts, sat an unfamiliar envelope. Harper Renly tore it open out of reflex. Inside was a photo, her white SUV, frozen mid-speed, splashing muddy water onto a uniformed woman, Naomi. Tucked inside was a small handwritten note. Not everyone forgets. And not everyone stays silent. Harper frowned. She crumpled the paper and tossed it into the fireplace. But this morning, as she reached for her coffee, her fingers trembled just a little. Comment 1 if you believe some mistakes aren't buried. They're simply waiting for the right moment to resurface. Inside her $12 million penthouse at Landmark 1, Harper Renly adjusted her Cartier necklace and looked into the mirror. To millions online, she was the ice queen of the digital age. But in the reflection, flawless skin and perfectly painted lips couldn't hide the faint cracking near her eyes. She was used to online outrage, but this felt different, because this time, the other woman hadn't said a word. A black woman, no power, no millions of followers. Yet somehow, she made Harper feel uncertain. And Harper loathed uncertainty. Harper Renly, 29, only daughter of Charles Renly, real estate tycoon. Born into silken spotlight, she graduated from New York University with a communications degree and built her personal empire on an image of ice and control. To the public, she was poised perfection, untouchable, but within the industry, whispers told of sudden firings, silent tantrums, and how Harper accidentally crushed those who didn't know their place. And Naomi, the one splashed with mud, wasn't disappearing like the others. Wednesday morning, Naomi stepped out the back entrance of the Valenhurst just as a luxury electric car pulled up. The window slid down. Naomi, right? Harper's voice was icy. Naomi stepped back slightly. Yes. Harper wore sunglasses, but her voice sliced like glass. You've stirred quite the buzz. People are starting to think I'm the villain in your fairy tale. Naomi clutched her bag. I haven't said anything. Exactly. And that silence is making people imagine worse. Harper leaned closer. Don't think Ethan Freeman is any different from the rest. When he gets bored, you'll realize... You were just another bullet point on his charity checklist. She smirked. The window shut. The car disappeared. Naomi stood still. She didn't respond, but she didn't flinch either. Meanwhile, in the staff lounge on the 6th floor, Naomi opened her locker. A small bouquet sat inside. No name. Just a single sprig of lavender clipped to a folded note. Keep going. Light doesn't have to shout to be seen. She touched the flower gently. And for the first time that day, smiled. On the security monitor, Malik was watching, but not from a car. He stood in the building's maintenance room, black jacket zipped to the collar, unnoticed. She doesn't need rescuing, he murmured to himself. She just needs the world to stop hiding her. That evening, Harper appeared on live television to promote her new designer handbag line. She smiled perfectly, sat with poise, answered smoothly. But backstage, as the cameras shut off, she turned to her assistant and hissed, "The coffee's cold. Fire the new girl." The room fell silent, eyes averted. In the shadows behind the stage, a young journalist recorded the moment, then began typing her first lines. She may be the ice queen, but even ice can melt. Naomi didn't speak out. She didn't post, didn't reply to messages. She simply kept working, quietly, professionally, flawlessly. And somehow that silence made the loudest statement. A VIP guest from the UK submitted a written review. "I've never seen someone tend to every corner of a room with such care. Naomi is the reason I returned to Valenhurst." Inside a high-level boardroom at Cole Estates, Malik stood before a projector screen. "Next week, I'm hosting a private dinner for investors at the hotel," he said, "and I'll be selecting the service staff myself." Some execs shifted in their seats. "You want to personally select a cleaner?" Malik said nothing. He simply placed Naomi's file on the table. "She's not just a cleaner," he said. "She's the standard." When Naomi stepped into the staff tea room, Malik was already there. No cap, no sunglasses. White shirt, sleeves rolled. On the table sat a thick, cream-colored folder. "What is that?" she asked cautiously. "A full scholarship," Malik said calmly. "Hospitality management, special training program at Valenhurst Academy." Naomi froze. "And living stipend. Travel costs covered. You can still work part-time here if you choose." "You picked me." Her voice cracked. Malik looked her in the eyes. "Number U picked you a long time ago. I'm just putting a name on that choice. Comment 1 if you've ever wished someone would truly see you for who you really are." It was afternoon at the small coffee corner behind Valenhurst's secondary lobby. A space staff usually avoided so as not to interrupt the guest experience. Malik sat across from Naomi, but today she carried no cleaning cloths, no bottles of disinfectant. Only wide eyes, filled with doubt, hope, and something deeper. A quiet fear. Am I really worthy of this? Outside the window, the lavender in the stone pots bowed gently to the breeze. Inside, Naomi's future wasn't just being discussed. It was sitting right there on the table, stamped, signed, and scheduled. Naomi had never imagined going back to school. When her mother passed away, she gave up her university scholarship to care for Zora. Every day became a survival checklist: rent, electric bills, end-of-month rice, new shoes for her sister. Her dream of managing a hotel had been folded into the corner of an old notebook, almost forgotten. But Malik had seen that notebook. He'd read her old transcripts, teacher recommendations, and a half-finished thesis titled, "The Ideal Hotel Welcomes Both the Guest and the One Who Sweeps the Floor." He paused longest at one passage. "A cleaner deserves to be looked in the eye when greeted in the morning, because a place without greetings isn't a hotel, just a building rented by the hour." She had written that, and no one had ever read it aloud, until now. Naomi had held the scholarship file for just 12 hours when an anonymous blog post exploded online. The truth about Valenhurst's so-called innocent janitor. She knew the CEO beforehand. It's all a PR stunt for fame and money. A manipulative, emotional scam. The post spread like wildfire across forums, hotel industry groups, and even the staff break room. Janelle, newly reinstated, sneered. Told y'all, nobody just gets a scholarship. Naomi stood still, her hand clenched around the folder. But for the first time, she didn't bow her head. That evening, Naomi left work early. She didn't respond to rumors, didn't post, didn't write a rebuttal. She simply sat beside Zora, brushing her little sister's hair like she did every night. Do you think I'm a bad person? Naomi asked softly. Zora looked up. If you're bad, I must be a little demon, she grinned. They both burst into laughter. In the darkness of the internet, a quiet light began to glow. And for the first time, Malik refused to stay silent. The next morning, before the press and a dozen rolling cameras, Malik Freeman took the podium at Cole Estates HQ. Rumors travel fast, but truth walks with firmer steps. He held up the scholarship folder. Naomi Sinclair is not a gold digger. She is one of the hardest working people I've ever met. I chose her because of her value, not pity, because of her integrity. The room froze. That afternoon, a fashion brand dropped their contract with Harper. A reporter's phone buzzed with a new alert. Who is Naomi Sinclair? Ranks top 5 in hospitality industry search trends. LinkedIn flooded with reshares of Malik's speech. No tags, no selfies. Just one common line. We need more people like her. That evening at Naomi's modest apartment, the doorbell rang. A delivery worker handed her a small box. Inside, a single red rose, and a handwritten note. Let the world say what it wants. I'll be the one who holds your truth. Malik. Naomi broke down in tears, not out of weakness, but because, for the first time in her life, someone believed her, without asking her to prove she was good enough first. At the next staff meeting, the hotel manager stood at the front with unusual formality. We are proud to announce employee Naomi Sinclair has officially been awarded the Valenhurst Scholarship as a symbol of enduring service and professional ethics. The room broke into applause. Not all of it was genuine. Janelle, seated in the back, didn't clap, but her expression was no longer contempt. It was confusion. Naomi didn't look back, but she knew, for the first time, someone in that room was asking themselves, am I on the right side of this? Naomi simply looked down, smiled gently, and whispered to herself, I don't need applause. I just need to not step backward. Crystal chandeliers reflected hundreds of fragments of light across the marble floor of Valenhurst Grand's main hall. Violins played softly. Expensive perfume mingled with chilled champagne. Amid the crowd clad in couture, a black woman stepped in, wearing a pale blue dress with no visible designer label, and yet all eyes turned toward her. Naomi Sinclair no longer wore a uniform, no cleaning rag, no name tag, but her stride remained unchanged, steady, calm, never needing anyone to clear a path. Because this very floor remembered every step she had taken, on her knees, with bare hands. Comment 1 if you believe that some footsteps, once ignored, eventually return and make the whole room rise. It was the 20th anniversary gala of the Valenhurst Hotel Group, held in the same central hall where Naomi had once been ordered to scrub every tile seam before VIPs arrived. Tonight, she walked the red carpet beside Malik Freeman. No reporter dared ask, who is she? Because ever since Malik's public press conference, the name Naomi had come to represent one thing: real value, real people. She sat at the front table, alongside board members and investors. Farther back, Harper Renly gripped her wine glass until her knuckles turned white. Naomi was still the same woman who woke up at 5 a.m., packed a sandwich for her sister, and texted Zora reminders to study. Only now she stood in a borrowed dress, representing every worker once dismissed as just the help, when the manager called her name to accept the honorary plaque for inspiring character, perseverance, and silent service. Naomi didn't search the crowd. She looked directly toward the stage, as if she hadn't come to be praised, but to return to a place she was once forced to leave. The entire room rose to its feet, not out of ceremony, but because they couldn't stay seated. After the award ceremony, in a private suite, Harper stormed into her father's office, Charles Renly, founding chairman of Valenhurst. "What are you doing?" she snapped. "You let a janitor become our brand symbol?" Charles looked up from his glass. "You still call someone like Naomi a janitor? After everything?" "She's nothing special." "And you are," he cut in, voice cold. "You were born with power. She built dignity, and yes, that does scare you." Harper froze. For the first time, she had no comeback. At the gala, Naomi wasn't just seated. A segment of the evening was dedicated to longtime staff proposing ideas to improve service standards. Malik personally invited Naomi to speak on behalf of the frontline workers. She didn't read from a script. She spoke slowly, clearly, from the chest. "Guests may never see the cleaners, but they'll feel it. When we clean with heart." The room went silent. Then the applause began. This time, not out of obligation, but because they were moved. Days after the gala, Naomi's story, from janitor to service icon, made headlines in global hospitality magazines. Simultaneously, an internal investigation uncovered the truth. Harper had hired bloggers to spread false rumors about Naomi. Her father did not protect her. "You didn't just insult a person," Charles said. "You tarnished our entire brand." That same week, Harper was suspended from all positions. Her accounts were frozen, her assistants released. She was barred from the family gala, and her portrait in the main lobby was quietly taken down. For the first time in her life, Harper wasn't invited to the very party that bore her family name. Naomi heard the news about Harper's downfall. She didn't celebrate, didn't post, didn't speak. She simply called Zora. "I'll be home late. There's a dinner tonight." Zora replied, "Eat 2 plates for me. But don't drink wine. I don't want you tipsy telling people you used to mop that floor in the middle of a gala." Naomi laughed, but her heart was full, because the one who truly saw her was the little girl she protected in silence. After the gala, Malik offered to drive Naomi home, but instead of pulling into her building, he stopped at a familiar sidewalk. Naomi knew it instantly. This was where she'd been splashed with mud, mocked, ignored. She slipped off her heels, stepping barefoot onto the freshly paved street. Each step, not to clean it, but to claim it. Malik said nothing. Then slowly he removed his shoes and walked beside her. "You doing this for me?" Naomi asked softly. "No," Malik replied. "I'm doing it for me because I forgot. Greatness doesn't live on the stage. It lives on the streets no one bothers to look at." Naomi stepped up to the lecture podium at Valenhurst Academy. In her hands, a final thesis titled, "A Hotel is Not a Building. It's the Way the Invisible Are Seen." She didn't tremble. She needed no introduction. From the front row, a group of students whispered. They'd seen her story in the papers. They knew she used to be a janitor. They thought she'd stay quiet. But Naomi opened with a single sentence that left the room still. "On my first day at the hotel, someone asked me who I was looking for. Today, I'm here, because I once had to find myself." Comment. 1. If you believe that sometimes what feels like an ending is just the first step of something far greater. Valenhurst Academy, a prestigious training program for future hotel executives launched by the Valenhurst Group. Naomi was the top student of the inaugural class. By day, she still worked part-time at the hotel. By night, she studied, theory and practice. Her schedule was brutal. She never missed a class. Graduation was held at the rooftop garden, the same place where Naomi once wiped down tables after a rainstorm. Today, she sat in the seat of honor, hair braided high, eyes clear, not flashy, but no one dared look past her. She didn't need to be named valedictorian. She was the only one who didn't need to be introduced. Zora, Naomi's younger sister, was now in 6th grade, studying at a STEM academy on a full scholarship thanks to a recommendation from Valenhurst Academy. One day she asked, "Are you sure they won't laugh when they find out I'm your sister?" Naomi smiled. But if they do, tell them your sister changed an entire company's hiring policy and still scrubs floors when needed." At first, a few students snickered, but after Zora finished saying that exact line during a class presentation, her teacher stood and applauded. The whole class followed, and from that day on, they called her the Little Sinclair. Despite the changes in her life, Naomi still carried one lingering fear that everything she'd received, the scholarship, the respect, Malik's gaze, would vanish, that it had all been temporary. One evening, while sitting on the hotel rooftop with Malik, she spoke softly. I still haven't sewn my name tag onto the new uniform. I'm scared one day it'll all be taken back, and I'll have to bow again. Malik turned to her. Naomi, he said, you don't need a name tag. You are the name. You're the definition of what deserves to be seen. Naomi was nominated as student advisor, representing students who were already in the workforce. She chose to launch an initiative called Shift Starts With Us, a volunteer program where janitors, guards, and kitchen workers could take free skill-building classes at night. No one made her do it. She wasn't paid extra. But every thank you email, every quiet handshake from a coworker saying, thanks to you, I'm finally learning Excel, made her realize she wasn't just learning to rise. She was learning to build a path. One afternoon, Naomi received a call from HR. There's a guest downstairs asking for you, she descended. Harper Renly was standing in the lobby. No security, no designer bag, no makeup. Harper looked at Naomi, for the first time, without sarcasm. I'm not here to apologize, she said. I'm not good at that, but I came to say, I see what you've built, and I finally understand why I was cut from the game. Naomi nodded. I never played that game. I just refused to follow rules I didn't make. Harper said nothing. She turned and walked away. And for the first time, Naomi didn't bow, and Harper didn't either. But her eyes, for once, were empty. No scheming, no contempt, only clarity. That night, Naomi returned to the same street where she'd once been splashed with mud. This time, Malik walked beside her. Not as a CEO, but as a man walking slowly beside the woman who had changed him. Naomi stepped onto the newly paved sidewalk and took off her shoes. Malik watched. What are you doing? He asked gently. Naomi smiled. Taking the last step of my old self to make space for the new one. She didn't need an audience, but somewhere out there, thousands of people would hear about this step. Because some footprints can't be erased. A month later, Naomi became the face of Valenhurst's new internal campaign, From Floors to Futures. The poster showed no heavy makeup, no filters, just Naomi, holding a clipboard, standing among staff from all departments. Beneath her, a quote from her graduation paper. You don't need to be called important. You just need to not be made invisible. In her classroom, Zora stood up and read that quote aloud, then raised her hand and said, She's my sister, but I think she's the image of 1,000 others. Because somewhere, every person who's ever been called too small to notice just needed one image to believe. They deserve to be seen. Naomi didn't come from a powerful family. She didn't have a glowing resume or a secret sponsor behind the scenes. She started with soaked shoes, a cleaning rag, and glances from people who never looked down. But what makes this story unforgettable isn't that she stood on a gala stage. It's that she never forgot the hallway where she once had to bow her head. Naomi never shouted. She didn't retaliate. She didn't turn her pain into a performance. She chose something else. To do the right thing, to keep walking, to let her worth speak for itself. For anyone who's ever been left off the list because of the color of their skin. For anyone who's had to bow because rent mattered more than pride. For anyone who's been told they're too quiet, too strong, too sensitive. Naomi is the message. You don't have to be perfect. Just don't surrender your dignity. You don't have to be loud. Just keep walking and let your steps leave a mark. Because sometimes what you build from the mud is what makes the whole system stop and take a second look.